What is happening, mediocre people of YouTube? So the verdict is in on these tube work cabinets that I got. That's two 2x12 cabinets hooked up as a 4x12 right now. Yeah, I really like it. I bought these on a whim, and they turned out to be really good. I'm really impressed with them. They sound great. Actually, we were talking the other day. They probably work out really well for the young bucks that, their little ears can't handle a 50 or 100 watt head, so they get those little mini heads, and then they like a 2x12 cabinet with it. That would work out good with these, the vertical 2x12s. And maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll build an amp and do something like that one day. But yeah, I really like them. So if anybody else knows anything about these cabinets, put it in the comments section below, because I still don't know a whole lot about them. I'm not clear on who the manufacturer of the speakers are. It's got a big tube work sticker planted on the back. I was thinking probably be maybe Eminence was the builder, but I don't know yet. But anyway, we ain't here to talk about that shit, no way, right? Apes. What are we here to talk about? Well, I was thinking the other day I should probably refresh this video. This video is not, the information that you have in this video is not new information by any means. It's information that's available to anyone who wants it. If you look, you'll find it. Scott Grove did a video like this years ago. He either took that video down or it was removed because the guitar companies do not want to have a conversation about this topic. So we're going to go through ghost building guitars. I broke out the pink folder for this, although I think I'm filming in black and white. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk a little bit about ghost building, and we're just going to go, I'm going to give you the same information Scott gave you pretty much. It hasn't really changed. Okay, kids, today we are going to learn a new word, ghost builder. So what is a ghost builder? Just like anything else, if let's say you and I, we got a company and we are manufacturing coffee containers, and it turns out that these coffee containers, we can't make enough of them to fill orders, but we know a company that can build the same thing for us and put it out there for us, right? So what we do is we contract some of the work to another company. Well, it happens in every industry, and it happens in the guitar industry. The difference with the guitar industry and other industries is, hey, when you shell out $4, $5, $6, $8, $10,000 for a, say, Gibson guitar, kind of like to know that Gibson built it. Did they? So, that's the thing. Ghost everything. Ghost writers, there's producers in the studio reamping your equipment and stuff when they record. There's ghost everything. Ghost writers, you know who that is. If you don't, just look up the topic. And you'll get to it. So we'll start out with a little letter to Ed Roman of Ed Roman Guitars. A friend of mine sent me your webpage yesterday. Very impressive site, by the way. What caught my eye was that you are the only person I've seen post anything about a fellow luthier I worked with back in the early 1980s. It was in Atlanta, Georgia. It was Chris Derrick. We worked at a shop called Atlanta Guitar Works. I flew down to AGW after I completed a guitar repair Votech program in Minnesota. That's how I met Chris. We became fast friends. After work, we would cruise in his convertible. So sad to hear about his passing. Chris was amazing. He had a huge pin router set up in his small apartment. His attention to detail was perfect. He indeed could build a better Les Paul than Gibson. Back at AGW, Chris would get set up for spraying his lacquer by taking the siphon cup full, straight lacquer, no solvent, and heat it up on a hot plate to thin it, which is, if you know anything about paint, that's not necessarily uncommon. Anyway, let's get down here. He just laughed with his North Carolina accent, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so here's where we get into the ghost building. I know for a fact he ghost built a Les Paul for Charlie Daniels in the 1980s. He stood in line at a record store, opened up the guitar case when it was his turn to meet Charlie. He did one for Dickie Betts as well. Things didn't work out too well for me and Chris, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to get into the guy's personal life. So, I mean, when you start... So, is your guitar ghost built? Does it matter to you? I kind of think it should matter. I mean, it matters to me, who manufactured my guitar. Look at the Devlin Les Paul I got. You know, that if you didn't know anybody until you pick that thing up and you're like, holy shit, you know, and then you find out where it came from, and you know why it's high quality. You know, it blows away. I would put that Les Paul against any Gibson Les Paul. In fact, I would put any of my Les Pauls against any Gibson Les Paul any day of the week. So, you know, we're going to start, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Washburn. Several different no-name Korean companies Ghost built all the Schechters and ESPs, most of the Washburns and Music Yo Kramers. So, you know, keep that in mind, which Korean company by the name of Samick, I believe, is who built my Devlin Les Paul, and they're known for good quality. Gretsch. There's a couple of them, I don't know, I might leave out here. Like I said, this information it's available to people. You know, if you go dig it up, you can find this information. And I think it's important to have a video on YouTube talking about this, you know. So we go with Gretsch. Heritage Guitars, Ghost built the top-of-the-line USA-made Gretsch until the quality problems forced Gretsch to go into Toyota, Japan. D'Angelico, Jim Triggs, Ghost built all of the D'Angelico models with Heritage. When Heritage, I'm sorry, Ghost built all the D'Angelico models when Heritage couldn't keep up with the production line and the quality was dropping off. Chris Derrick, which is the luthier we just talked about in this letter, built a number of 1959 replicas for your friend and mine, Slash. I have been contacted by a number of people who have given me names of over 12 different luthiers who are building better Les Pauls than Gibson. I won't mention their names because I don't wish the wrath of Gibson on them. Letter sent in by a customer. He asked me to print it and put it on the Ghost Built website. So here we go. We get into Ghost building with Gibson a little bit. Chris Derrick, who's the guy that built Slash's iconic Les Paul, beautiful guitar, by the way. Chris Derrick, and then, by the way, Gibson just came out with a line of them a couple years ago and charged all kinds of fucking money for them. There actually was one at the local guitar center that I really liked it, and then I thought about buying it, not to play it, just to have it because it was high quality. I'd love to play it, but at the same time, if I was going to buy something like that, it wouldn't be something that I'd play, you know what I mean? It would be something I would keep because I know the value is going up, especially right now. The fucking, God, the gear is just getting expensive. Shh. I'm always amazed at how far out of whack this story gets. I have corrected this story on Les Paul forums and other forums, so I guess I'll do it here as well. Chris Derrick was a close friend of mine, a close friend of Jim Foote, the owner of Music Works in Redondo Beach, California, back in the 1980s. At the time, a lot more popular up-and-coming local LA bands came to Music Works to rehearse in the studio. Among these was Dokken, Guns N' Roses, Great White, etc. Chris Derrick was staying there part-time as he was building Les Paul replicas on his own initiative to fund the fixing up of his Pontiac Le Mans convertible. Chris had a motorhome parked in Music Works parking lot that he lived in while Le Mans car restoration was going on. All of the local players knew Chris and Jim Foote from being around the studio, and as would be expected, wound up talking to him. At the time, Chris was finishing up a replica to fund more car restoration cash. GNR was in the studio, and Slash's guitar was giving him fits, as it wouldn't stay in tune. He came to Music Works, and Chris agreed to let him borrow the guitar for his recordings. Chris stuck a set of Seymour Duncan Alnico 2 pickups, Seymour Duncan Alnico 2 Pro pickups in it because Chris needed some pickups in the guitar for Slash to use, and these were the only spare pickups that he had, that Foote had at the time. APH1 Alnico 2 Pro was what was in there to lend him. Derrick put the pickups in, lent the guitar to Slash, who later had their manager pay for it. Slash played it on the Appetite for Destruction album, and a lot of folks went bonkers for that tone. So there's where the tone, you guys that love that the old GNR Appetite for Destruction album as I do, that's where the tone comes from. It's a replica Les Paul with APH1 Alnico 2 Pro pickups in it. So here's a summary of it. Max did not build Slash's guitar used on Appetite for Destruction. Chris Derrick did. Chris died of leukemia in the late 1980s, shortly before finishing his Le Mans, but well after he finished the replica that became Slash's guitar used on Appetite for Destruction. When you read the articles talking to Slash about the guitar he used on Appetite for Destruction, he refers to the builder as the guy in Redondo Beach, California. That's who he's talking about. Chris Derrick, not Max Peter Barrett. Music Works left the location years ago, but is still on Artesia Boulevard, just 1 mile down the street in Lawndale, California. Jim Foote is still the owner of Music Works, is a business associate friend of mine, and I've been aware of the actual truth of this for years, well before I got online to guitar Les Paul gear forums. There are pics of the guitar in the there are pictures of the guitar in an old photo album before it went out the door to Slash, and a framed picture as well, hovering around the shop somewhere. There are also many gold platinum records on the wall presented to Foote, Music Works for GNR, Great White Dokken, etc. There's sort of a shrine to Chris's tool room in the form of his tools mounted on a pegboard that he used to make guitars till he died. I hope this clears things up once and for all. Who made Slash's guitar? Max has made, and maybe for all I know, still makes Les Paul and Flying V replicas. From what I hear, he does a great job, although I've never played one. I've played several of Derrick's, and they're not perfect replicas, but they're damn fine guitars and unique tops, and great workmanship, which are no longer being made. Music Works still has a presence in LA, so go ahead and go with that. But there's your story about Slash's Les Paul and the guitar that was played on Appetite for Destruction, which many, especially the younger guys, are trying to reach that tone. So there you go. So, on to more manufacturers here. We've got Guild. Tacoma Guitars, solely owned by Fender, Ghost builds all of the Guild flat top acoustic guitars. Alembic, Bruce Beckfar, Ghost built Led Zeppelin's John Paul Jones Alembic Omega bass. Okay, here we go. This is where we're going to get touchy here. Fender, Gibson, Gretsch. JBG Ghost built Fender and Gibson vintage style guitars and basses for ZZ Top, Billy Gibbons, and Dusty Hill. Also for Joe Perry. Okay, that's not so bad. All right, Gibson, don't get too pissed off at me here. So we go on to Terry Rogers, John Shure, the Shure guitars and amplifiers. John Shure built the now defunct Terry Rogers Molly from day one till the end. Jackson Guitars, Chushin Gaki in Japan. Ghost builds all of Jackson's imported guitars, which are very fine quality. And people got to get that straight too, because you see a lot of stuff on eBay. Gaki, well, which Gaki? There's still a lot of guys like Smith in the United States. So we go on to, excuse me, fucking leg is bothering me badly today. So let's go on to, we said Jackson. Gibson, Paul Reed Smith actually Ghost built Ted Nugent a Gibson Birdland back in 1974. Ted wanted something better than stock. There are other rumors of PRS building Explorers for ZZ Top under the Gibson name, but no one is admitting to it. Fender and Ibanez, Fuji Gengaki, Ghost built the Japanese Fenders and many of the Ibanez guitars available. Neil Scone, Jackson Guitars, Ghost built all of the Neil Scone guitars in the 80s. I purchased the last 170 of them, still available. That's from Ed Roman saying that he purchased those guitars. If you don't know who Ed Roman is, do a search and you'll find that he was a guy with a lot of knowledge about this stuff. Mosswright, Tokai used to build all of the original Mosswright Japanese models, including the Ranger. Great quality. Here we go. The original Kramer. The original Kramer guitars. Tom Anderson built a lot of the Kramers for Kramer's artist roster back in the 1980s. Okay, and Tom Anderson is still around and still building custom guitars, as far as I know. I don't know if he does anything as far as a larger production, but I know he built some guitars for Scott Grove. In fact, at least one of his main players is an Anderson guitar. They're still in business to this day, that fine quality guitars, in case you guys are looking for something. Okay, here we go. This is where it starts to get touchy. Kramer USA. All of the Kramer USA guitars that said made in the USA were actually manufactured in Canada by Godin Guitar Company. Just because a neck plate says Kramer, Neptune, New Jersey, that does not mean that Kramer Guitars makes anything there. It simply means that there is a corporate headquarters there. Garrison guitars, Canadian Garrison guitars are built by some nameless Chinese company. Quality is very poor. Here we go again with Kramer guitars. Ed Roman's custom shop Ghost built several of the Gene Simmons USA-made axe bases after Kramer went out of business. Ed Roman had to pay Gene $1,000 for each one for the right to do it, but hey, that gets passed on to the customer, right? Max's story. So here we go with Max's story. Back to the Max we were talking about in the original story. A California luthier named Max Ghost builds most of Slash's guitars that say Gibson on them. They do say Gibson on the headstock. Slash actually told magazine interviews that, and they actually printed it at one time. Actually, the story is as follows. Guns N' Roses lived and rehearsed in a garage in the alley behind my shop in Hollywood. I knew these guys before Guns N' Roses ever formed. One Friday afternoon, Slash came in with a friend of mine. He had just been signed to a record deal and was supposed to start recording their first album on Monday. He didn't have a guitar. Any guitar. He knew I made bursts and wanted one. I had nothing finished. He kept pressing me to help him out somehow. Finally, I told him all I had that was finished was my personal burst. I let him take it on loan. He came back the following week and said he loved it and wanted to buy it. He did not want the original 50s parts that were on it, so he had them removed and newer parts put on. This is the guitar he used in the studio. The Derrick burst was purchased later and used on tour. It's the one in all the photos. It is the one he refers to as his main guitar at that time. It was his main live guitar until he bought the ugly 1980s Gibson. He keeps my guitar locked away in storage and only brings it out to record with. This is his main recording guitar. His interviews are vague and confusing, but I know because I was there and I still hang out with Slash every once in a while. Sorry to differ from your story, but that's what happened. So that's, another Slash story. But regardless, either of the guitars were built by Gibson. Okay, so we get into Silvertone guitars. Dan Electro Ghost built the Sears Silvertone and Montgomery Ward's guitars of the early 1960s. Epiphone guitars are built by numerous Chinese companies. There are so many different companies that's actually making guitars under that name that it is impossible to find out all the names, and that's true. And some of the Epiphones are very high quality. If you get one, the Korean Epiphones are excellent quality. I will attest to that they are excellent quality. Now, that same company also built a factory in China, and I personally have yet to find out whether they're putting out high quality in China or not. But I will attest to that the Korean-made Gibsons, the Korean-made Ibanez. I've not had one that I didn't like. So we go on to the Ibanez USA models. PBC guitars. Dave Bunker Ghost built all the USA-made Ibanez custom shop guitars for about 3 or maybe 4 years. JBG Ghost builds guitars for Keith Richards and Ron Wood of the Rolling Stones. Many famous bands are contractually bound to play certain bands, so that meaning that like somebody like Zakk Wylde, for instance, he was contracted by Gibson to only play Gibson guitars. The chance of Gibson actually building him a guitar that he used are pretty much slim to none, and that goes for any performing artist that's playing a Gibson guitar. The chances that Gibson actually built that guitar, it probably didn't happen. They probably, as a company, is it right? Is it wrong? I don't know. But let's say you got to make a decision for the Gibson company, and that Gibson is only capable of so much quality, and I've got to build a guitar for Zakk Wylde. Well, maybe I'll hire a really high quality builder to build that guitar, but we're still going to put the Gibson name on it. You know what I mean? That's how it works, sorry to tell you. The Polka Dot V, Randy Rhoads, and I've talked about this many times on my channel. Abstract guitars, Ghost built the Randy Rhoads Polka Dot guitar for 12 years before actually putting the brand name on the guitar. So there you go, with all the different brands you hear that guitar is. Rickenbacker. Yes, Backer. There's no Bacher. Like Tom Petty said, there's no Bacher. Rickenbacker builds some pretty nice guitars, but if you have large hands, you simply can't play them. If you are very hard on your guitars, Rickenbackers don't take abuse very well. Consequently, the Beatle tribute bands ask for replicas all the time. They make great money, so they don't care what it costs. We have only done a couple with permission from Rickenbacker, but there are people out there who do it a lot more commonly. Don't get caught, or Rickenbacker will have your ass for lunch. The guitarist in Tribute 64 builds his own, and more recently one of my customers built one for himself. He asked me to show it here. There's a picture of it here, but you guys, I think I'm in black and white anyway. But Rickenbacker is one of the ones that I really don't want to talk about in this video because they don't, no guitar companies, but there's certain ones, Gibson, Rickenbacker, that could get this video taken down. Kramer guitars. Again, with Kramer, ESP Ghost built all of the early cheaper Kramer Strikers and Aerodyne guitars during the 1980s. Blade guitars, Terada Ghost built the original high-quality Gary Levinson Blade guitars in the 1990s. Ed Roman's Custom Shop built all of the Yaros guitars for a 2-year period when Jim Jaros hurt himself and couldn't build. We go on to more of the Kramer guitars. Robert Godin, Ghost built almost all of the American-made Kramers during the mid to later 80s. We knew about the cheap ones being built by ESP, but only recently were we made aware that Kramer never actually made any American guitars themselves. Did you hear what I just said? I'll say it again. Ghost built, Robert Godin, Ghost built almost all of the American-made Kramers during the mid to later 80s. We knew about the cheap ones being built by ESP, but only recently were we made aware that Kramer never actually built any American guitars themselves. So all you Kramer fans, as I am, I love Kramer's guitar. I've got a kick-ass Kramer, but sorry, none of the good ones were ever made by the actual Kramer Guitar Company. Kerbo, Tobias, Court, Conklin, and others. Jack Westheimer, a.k.a. Court, Ghost builds at least 40 brands of guitars that you have heard of and probably assume are made by companies whose names are on the headstock. And that's true. I've got an Ibanez over there. A lot of you guys are aware of the fact that if you look on your guitar, look at the serial number, if it starts with C, it was more than less probably built in the Court factory. And they build great guitars. Not great guitar. Every once in a while, a really great one comes out of there, but they build decent guitars, Court has made, man, pretty much every guitar you've ever thought of, Court has built. So, and more Kramer guitars. Ed Roman's Custom Shop, Ghost built the Van Halen Kramer Red 5150 style guitar after Kramer went out of business. Over 600 were made between 1984 and 2003. So keep that in mind, that's man, you get a Ed Roman Kramer built Van Halen 5150 between where is it at now? Between 1984 and 2003. We're talking super high quality right there. Ed Roman's Custom Shop built them, and they did not fuck around. I don't know a lot about what's going on with Ed Roman's shop now after his passing several years ago, but I'm sure that I can't see him not putting out high quality. But going back, between if you really want a Van Halen Kramer, a red one, the 5150, instead of buying the stuff that's out now, if you can find one for a decent price between 1984 and 2003. There were 600 of them made, and that's a good investment if you can get it for the right price. Okay, so we go on to Charvel. Ed Roman's Custom Shop Ghost built the Van Halen yellow candy stripe guitar with the Fender headstock during the years 1989 and 2002. 30 of them were made. So these are rare guitars. Gibson. Ed Roman's Custom Shop Ghost built for Ace Frehley style. Ed Roman's Custom Shop built for the number 4 Ace Frehley style flashing light guitars during the Never Ending Kiss last tour. Tom Holmes Divisor guitars. Ghost builds the Tom Holmes models that are sold worldwide. Steinberger. So this is interesting about Steinberger. Ed Roman's Custom Shop Ghost built over 200 Steinberger style headless instruments using acquired old Steinberger parts for the after the Steinberger shutdown. That's pretty interesting. PRS actually had their EG model USA ghost built by a small guitar manufacturer in Baltimore. Can't remember their name. Silvertone had all their guitars that Paul Stanley made, built by legendary LA ghost builder Performance Custom. Originally, Performance made all of Steve Vai's wild guitars, like the Flame guitar, etc. Interesting, Silvertone did that. Moss Wright again. Ed Roman recently got the contract to build the new and improved Moss Wright quilt top ebony fretboard 65 reissue guitars, the original Ventures models. And we get into Eastman here. 2006, 2007, 2008. Eastman Guitars will be ghost building the popular Blues Deluxe slimline that Heritage previously ghost built under a private label for Ed Roman for 6 years. D'Angelico Heritage Guitars of Kalamazoo, Michigan, ghost built all the D'Angelico guitars in the early 1990s. Heritage built a great guitar during that era. So early 1990s Heritage guitars, look for those. Seems like every day I hear more and more ghost builder stories. It involves pickup builders, electronic designers, luthiers, engineers, inlay artists, and other various items. Some of these have been removed because I've been asked by the parties involved to remove them from the website. ESP outsourced a Skull and Bones body. This is not quite the best example because the bodies were really horrible. They hired a guy named Dave McSwain to carve some bodies. They used an imported Asian-made neck and proceeded to call these crappy guitars made in the USA. PRS outsources their Dragon inlays. Nothing wrong with that. It's totally legal. I just don't happen to like that they use the Dragon as their main icon and trademark, etc., etc. And they don't even really make it. It is completely CNC made and by the very talented Larry Siffel of Pearlworks in Baltimore. I outsource some of my inlay work. Almost everyone does. I just don't try to iconolize my products with trademarked outsourced items. Iconolize, is that a word? Yes, is a very criminal word. PRS has used the Dragon to embiggen themselves from a small company, the mega company, to the mega company they are today. Embiggen, that's another very cromulent word. Hey, sometimes I take poetic license. This is all Ed Roman talking on the website. I don't want to get off on a rant here, but I happen to believe that people should know who builds their guitars. I agree with them. It pisses me off to no end that some 14-year-old kid goes out and buys expensive, overpriced guitar just because he saw Jimmy Page playing it. He assumes incorrectly that the guitar he buys is going to be just like the one his hero plays. In some cases, that may be true. Alembic's Jerry Garcia tribute guitars or their John S. Whistle bass. Most of the time, however, the poor, helpless customer gets reamed. If you want the straight story, call Ed Roman Guitars. Now, I don't know if you can call Ed Roman Guitars and ask for any stories nowadays. There is the phone number. Like I said, I know they're still in business, but I don't know to what extent. Ed Roman was a hell of a builder back in the day, and you can watch videos here on YouTube of him doing his Les Paul customs. The only way he would do a Les Paul conversion, what he would basically do is he'd build a body and with a nice top and everything, and then he would, but the only way he could get a neck from Gibson with a Gibson logo on it was to cut it off another Les Paul, because Gibson didn't want him building them. So, this video could get taken down. The guitar companies, like I said, they do not like this topic. But hey, I think the information should be out there. Like I said, I recently did a search I wanted to watch Scott Grove's video that he did. And in his video, he gave you all the information I just gave you. And I don't know whether he took it down or it was taken down or he was asked to take it down. If I'm asked to take it down, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, it's something I've been thinking about, and I thought maybe, it'd be a good idea to go ahead and do my own little video on it and put the information out there, because I think, you guys all deserve an answer. All right, you guys, I got lots more stuff coming. Until next time, peace.